ever played a game and it ends up a tie?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what was the point?
Totally. Right.
Some games have ways to, like, figure out who wins, right?
Yeah.
Like in soccer, they go to penalty kicks.
Right.
But in chess, like, what do you do?
Well, in chess, they've tried all kinds of different things to figure out who wins if it's a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Some worked better than others. And, we're going to look at one of the weirder ones today.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsor,
Okay.
zeroblunders.com.
Awesome.
They have some really cool chess stuff,
Nice.
like T-shirts and hats.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, to figure out how a roulette wheel ended up deciding a big chess match, we got to go back to the 1980s.
Okay.
This was like a super competitive time in chess, especially in the Soviet Union.
So, like, what was the big deal back then? What was going on?
Well, every chess player who wanted to be somebody wanted to be the world champion.
Yeah, makes sense.
But to even get a chance to play the champion, you had to win this crazy tournament. They called it the Candidates Tournament.
So it was like a tournament to see who got to be in the real tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in 1983, there were these two, chess giants in the quarterfinals of the Candidates Tournament.
Yeah.
Vasily Smyslov, he was a former world champion,
Wow.
and Robert Hübner, this rising star from West Germany.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is the roulette wheel.
Yeah.
Mm.
This match was in Veldin, Austria,
Okay.
and it was best of 10 games, so the first one to get to 5.5 points would go on to the semifinals.
Got it.
Smyslov was 62 at the time, and he was known for being really good at, positional chess.
Okay.
And Hübner, he was only 34. He was, really aggressive and dynamic.
Wow, so it was like young versus, I don't want to say old,
Yeah.
but experience versus, just this fire.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
It was like a clash of styles and generations.
So what happened?
The match was super close.
Oh.
They were, trading wins and draws back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And after 10 games, they were totally tied. 5-5.
So they needed a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But you're saying back then they didn't have a good system.
They had tiebreakers, but they used them all up.
Oh.
They played 4 more games, but those were faster.
Okay.
And they still ended up tied.
Oh my gosh, they must have been so tired. So what did they do? Did they, flip a coin?
Well, this is where it gets really weird. Remember how I said the match was in Veldin, Austria?
Yeah, like a beautiful little town.
Yeah, well, Veldin also has this Casino Veldin.
Okay.
And since they ran out of tiebreakers, they decided to use the casino's roulette wheel to pick the winner.
Wait, you're kidding, right?
Nope.
They used a roulette wheel.
Roulette wheel.
That's crazy. Can you imagine the pressure on these two guys?
I know, right?
After days of playing chess, their fate comes down to a little ball.
Totally.
Did they at least get to pick a number or a color?
So Smyslov was playing white, and in chess, the white pieces are lighter,
Yeah.
So they gave him red on the roulette wheel.
That makes sense, I guess. So they spun the wheel.
Yeah.
And
What happened? It landed on 0.
what?
Yeah.
That's neither red nor black.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh. So they had to spin again?
Yeah.
Oh man, talk about pressure.
I know. It must have been awful.
So the second spin.
It landed on red 3.
Wow.
And just like that, Smyslov won and went on to the semifinals.
Unbelievable. That's crazy, using a roulette wheel. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the weirdest tiebreakers in chess history.
Yeah, for sure.
People really started talking about luck in chess after that.
I bet. I mean, chess is all about strategy and skill, right?
Exactly.
And then they just let a roulette wheel decide.
It's like none of that stuff matters.
Right. If it all comes down to chance, then what's the point of even planning?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know if there's a good answer.
So, where do you draw the line?
Right.
If a roulette wheel is too random, what about flipping a coin? Is there ever a time when chance should be a part of a game that's about skill?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think there's an easy answer.
No.
But that whole Smyslov-Hübner roulette thing really showed everybody that they needed a better way.
So how do they decide ties now?
Oh, yeah.
They learned their lesson about roulette wheels, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
These days, the most common tiebreaker is what they call Armageddon.
Armageddon. That sounds intense.
It is.
What is it?
Basically, it's like sudden death.
Okay.
One last game to decide the winner.
Oh, I see.
So whoever wins that game wins the whole match.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense.
But there's a catch.
What's that?
Black gets less time on the clock than white.
Huh?
But if black can manage to draw the game, they win the match.
So white has more time and really needs to go for the win.
Yeah.
But black can play defensively and just try not to lose.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it makes it really strategic.
Definitely.
And, there's a lot of psychology involved too.
I bet.
And it pretty much always ends with somebody winning, which is kind of what you want in a tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So they came up with something that makes sure there's a result, but it's still all about chess skill.
Right. Not spinning a wheel.
No more casinos.
No more casinos.
That's good.
Yeah.
But are there still problems with this system?
Even with this system, there are still some people who aren't happy.
Really?
Some people say that the time difference between black and white isn't fair.
I can see that it's tough to figure out what's truly fair when it comes to tiebreakers.
Yeah, it's all about finding a balance between fairness and making sure there's a clear winner.
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing, and people will always have different opinions.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even though we've moved on from roulette wheels, it sounds like the debate about tiebreakers in chess isn't over.
No, not at all. And it's not just chess either.
Oh, yeah?
Think about penalty shootouts in soccer
Mm-hmm.
or tiebreakers in tennis.
Right.
There's always this back and forth between skill and luck.
It's tough.
Finding the best way to break a tie is a challenge.
That's for sure. So the roulette wheel was pretty unique, but were there any other weird tiebreakers in history?
Well, maybe not as dramatic as a roulette wheel, but they actually used a coin toss sometimes to decide important matches.
A coin toss?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I get that it's simple, but for something like a big match, that seems a little too simple.
Yeah, it does.
Especially for something like an election.
It really shows you how much people have struggled with figuring out how to fairly break a tie.
Wow, they really did.
Sometimes they had to get creative.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I guess the big takeaway is that no matter what you're doing, you need clear rules for tiebreakers.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Whether it's a game or competition, it's super important.
It makes sure that the winner is the one with the most skill and the best strategy.
Right.
Not the luckiest. It helps to avoid those situations where you got to go find a roulette wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Have you ever seen any strange tiebreakers? Let us know. But for now, let's talk about something a little different. Earlier, you mentioned that 1984 World Championship match.
Yeah.
Between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one that they had to stop, right?
Yeah, it went on forever.
It did, didn't it?
They played like 48 games.
48 games.
48 games.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was a record.
I can't even imagine playing one game at that level, let alone 48.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? Did they just, pass out from exhaustion?
It was really tough on them, both mentally and physically. People were starting to get really worried about their health.
Right.
So FIDE, the International Chess Federation,
No.
they had to step in and stop it.
Really? Wow, so there was no winner?
Nope, they just called the whole thing off.
Right.
It was really controversial.
Yeah, I bet.
And it made people think about those tiebreaker rules again.
They didn't have any, right?
Yeah, that was part of the problem.
So how did that tie into the tiebreaker thing?
Well, one of the things that made it so messy was that they didn't have any clear rules about what to do if it was a tie.
Right.
They were playing this super long match, and they didn't even know how it would end if they tied.
It seems like kind of a big thing to forget, especially for World Championship.
Yeah, you'd think they would have figured that out beforehand.
It just goes to show that even at the highest level, they're still figuring things out.
Yeah, even the best competitions change, and the rules get updated all the time.
So what's the lesson here? What can we learn from all these tiebreaker stories?
I think the big thing is that clear tiebreaker rules are super important.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's chess or something else.
Yeah.
It makes things fair, and it makes sure that skill and strategy decide who wins.
Not luck.
Yeah, and it keeps things from getting weird, like that roulette brand situation.
Exactly. Nobody wants that.
So what do you think? If you were making tiebreaker rules for your favorite game, what would they be?
That's something to think about.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of chess tiebreakers.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time for another look at chess history and strategy.